I was recently made aware of a new ETF company that just released 2 investment funds that they claim are designed for people who want to achieve FIRE. I also noticed that there's been a lot of coverage surrounding this company on financial websites, which is likely the result of a paid advertising campaign on their part. You can see on their website it says, "We get FIRE, the first ETFs designed for the FIRE community." Now, if you're not familiar with what the concept of FIRE is, they provide a description right on their homepage. It says, FIRE, which stands for Financial Independence Retire Early, is a financial lifestyle and philosophy that's focused on achieving financial freedom at a younger age through a combination of aggressive saving, smart investing, and mindful spending. The goal is to accumulate enough wealth to support one's living expenses without relying on traditional employment, allowing for early retirement or a shift to more fulfilling pursuits. And so this company has introduced 2 ETFs that they claim align with this philosophy of retiring off as little money as possible. So I figured we'd take a look at both of these ETFs and see if that's really going to be the case. Now, for both of these ETFs, they're only a month old, so we don't yet have a full picture of what to expect. But based on their descriptions, their holdings, and just what information's available so far, we can already get a pretty good picture. So there's 3 things that ultimately I personally would expect from a fund that claims to help people retire early and with as little money as possible. First, I want to see these ETFs pay monthly dividends. If I was an investor and you want me to invest all of my money into your FIRE funds, then I expect to be paid monthly so I can budget my expenses. Second, they need to offer a high yield. I would expect a minimum of 8% from these ETFs, and ideally more if possible. That's the whole point of FIRE, which is to retire off as little money as you reasonably can. A 1 or a 2% yield isn't going to cut it. And then third, I expect consistency in their dividends. This means 2 things. It's really important that there aren't consistent dividend cuts, but it also needs to be roughly the same amount each month. Don't pay 12 cents one month, 7 cents the next, and then 13 cents the following month, because nobody can plan a budget around these kind of distributions. So let's start with their first fund, which is the FIRE Fund's Wealth Builder ETF, ticker FIRS. According to their website, FIRS is an investment product designed to support your journey towards financial independence and retire early. With a focus on resilience and potential growth across various market cycles, FIRS seeks long-term capital appreciation and diversification across 4 strategically constructed ETF baskets that align with prosperity, recession, inflation, and deflation conditions. This approach seeks to position your investments to respond effectively to changing economic environments. It was just launched last month, and it still has less than $1 million worth of investments in it. But nowhere on this fund's page does it talk about dividends, so I did some reading in their fund's prospectus to get a better understanding of its objective. It says both of their ETFs are fund of funds, which means that they're basically ETFs that hold other ETFs. There's 4 points in their prospectus under their main strategy overview. 25% of the fund's holdings are allocated into each strategy type. First is prosperity, which means it holds funds that invest in equity securities that are focused on growth. They also try to hold more recession-proof holdings with lower volatility and funds that do well against inflation, such as commodity and real estate funds. They also hold 25% in deflation-proof funds, such as fixed income funds. Based on what I found on this fund's prospectus, there's no target yield listed anywhere, but based upon what I'm seeing, it looks like the yield will be very low. This appears to be mainly a fund that's focused on share price growth and not dividend distributions. Looking at their holdings, we can see it holds kind of a bizarre mixture of investments. It holds an S&P 500 index fund, several bond ETFs, a Bitcoin ETF, a REIT ETF, and a handful of other holdings. Now, some of these holdings do offer decent yields. The bond ETFs yield at least 4%, and a few of them offer much higher than that. But after looking at this fund's holdings, it's clear that a high yield is not the goal of this ETF. Their prospectus also doesn't mention anything about monthly dividends either, so I'm going to assume that it pays quarterly. This appears to be just a typical actively managed fund that's focused on some growth and what will likely be a small dividend yield. If your goal is share price appreciation and not dividends, I would just have to ask, why would you bother with this ETF? This fund comes with a gross expense ratio of 0.67%, so I say just buy an S&P 500 ETF. The Vanguard S&P 500 ETF comes with an expense ratio of just 0.03%, so you're paying far less in fees for what could be better gains. Now, its strategy of holding funds less impacted by inflation and recessions could make it a steadier investment. But we all know the main focus of this fund is to grow your wealth. It's in the title. It's extremely rare for any investment to beat the S&P 500 over the long term. It's well known among fund managers that consistently beating the market is almost impossible. It can be done for a year or two, but no other ETF has beaten the market over the course of several decades. So again, if dividends aren't your main focus, why bother with FIRS when you can go with an index fund like VOO or SPY? This entire ETF just feels like a gimmick, so let's move on to their other ETF, the Fire Fund's Income Target ETF. This one actually has the goal of paying dividends and monthly distributions according to their prospectus. This is their fund's description taken off their website. FIRI is an actively managed fund designed to seek current income with an aim to provide a 4% targeted annual income level. Do I really need to go any further here? Tailored to align with the financial independence and retire early, or FIRE lifestyle, FIRI offers a potential income stream to support financial goals. There are so many other stocks and ETFs that offer much higher yields than this, and that's all without bearing too much risk at all. On top of that, this ETF has a gross expense ratio of 0.89%. Now, it is possible it could achieve a yield greater than 4%, but if this is their absolute minimum target, it needs to be much higher than this. Let's do some math. How much would you need to invest in a 4% yielding fund to earn $50,000 per year in dividends? We need to use the following formula to determine how much we would need to invest. Required investment equals desired income divided by yield. So $50,000 divided by 0.04 equals $1.25 million. That's how much money you would need in order to receive $50,000 a year in dividends from this ETF. That does not sound like FIRE to me. This is more than what many Americans can save in a lifetime. I did notice that a lot of the top holdings pay a variable dividend. It actually holds some yield max and defiance funds, which can pay a vastly different amount each month. So it's possible the yield could be higher in some months than others. But this runs into another issue, which is that if it does pay a variable dividend each month, that's not going to go well with lifestyle budgeting. You can't earn $5,000 in dividends one month and then $2,000 the next. It would be very difficult to budget a lifestyle around that. But as I was researching the holdings inside of these two ETFs, I noticed something that's very interesting. FIRE Funds appointed a company named Tidal Investments as their advisors. These are the people who provide feedback on what investments should be inside these two ETFs. After going through all of their top holdings in these two ETFs, I discovered that virtually everything listed here is also managed by Tidal Investments. Now this entire thing makes sense. All of these news articles were all part of a major marketing campaign by Tidal. You're buying an ETF that's managed by Tidal that exclusively holds other Tidal ETFs, which all come with their own expense ratios, by the way. Now, I won't say that everything Tidal puts out is bad. They do have some good ETFs. But when they say they understand the FIRE movement, I don't believe them. This all appears to be a cash grab on their part. It's a repackaging of products they already put out. There's plenty of better options out there that exist with much higher yields. I see no reason to believe that you would lose money with either of these two ETFs, but FIRE Funds just sounds disingenuous to me, and I'd prefer to look at other options, which there's plenty of. I will keep an eye on them though, and if they're amazing and they offer much higher yields, then I'll reconsider my position. But I wouldn't consider them for the time being. And with that being said, that's going to conclude today's video. If you'd like to connect and also see what's inside my own personal dividend portfolio, then feel free to check me out over on our Patreon, where you'll receive updates and be able to talk to me and other higher yielding dividend and income investors. But with that being said, thank you all so much for watching today's video, and until next time, take care.